Picture this. It is early morning. A man in his late 60s sits on the edge of his bed, preparing to stand up for the day. Something that 20 years ago required zero thought, zero effort, zero preparation. Today he pauses, places both hands on his knees, takes a breath, and pushes. Most people watching this will recognize that moment. Some will recognize it from their own mornings. Others will recognize it from watching someone they love. And almost nobody has ever been told what that moment actually means, biologically, medically, and in terms of what it predicts about the years ahead. That is what today is about. Because there is one exercise, one single, simple, requires no equipment movement that addresses the exact physical decline behind that morning struggle more directly and more completely than almost anything else in the research on healthy aging after 60. And by the end of this video, you will understand not just what it is, but why it works at a level most people have never had explained to them. Stay with me, because this is more important than it sounds. Let us start with the question most people never ask. Why does getting up feel harder after 60? Not dramatically harder overnight, but gradually, quietly, progressively harder, in a way that most people notice only when they compare how they feel now to how they remember feeling 10 years ago. Most people assume the answer is simply age, that this is what getting older feels like, and there is little to be done about it. But doctors see something more specific than age. They see a pattern, and that pattern points to three very precise physical changes that are happening simultaneously inside the body after 60. Changes that are interconnected, changes that reinforce each other, and changes that together explain almost everything about why movement becomes more effortful, balance becomes less certain, and recovery from physical exertion takes longer than it once did. Think of the body at this stage like an old house that has not had maintenance for several years. The structure is sound, the foundation is solid, but certain systems have quietly degraded, not because the house is beyond repair, but because the specific attention those systems needed was never given. The first system is lower body muscle mass. After 60, the body loses muscle at a rate of 1 to 2% per year without the right stimulus to maintain it. Not everywhere equally, but most significantly in the large muscles of the thighs, the glutes, and the deep stabilizing muscles of the hip. The muscles that are responsible for every act of rising, every act of climbing, every act of maintaining balance when the ground is uneven or the footing is uncertain. The second is circulation in the lower body. The muscular pump that drives blood back up from the legs toward the heart depends on active, regular contraction of those same lower body muscles. When they become less active, circulation in the extremities slows. Fluid pools. The legs feel heavy and tired earlier in the day. Recovery from any physical effort takes longer because the delivery of oxygen to tired tissue and the clearance of metabolic waste both slow down. The third is what scientists call proprioception, the body's ability to sense its own position in space, to feel the ground beneath the feet, and to make the hundreds of tiny automatic adjustments that keep a person stable and confident during movement. After 60, without the right kind of regular physical challenge, this sensory system becomes less sharp, less responsive, and that subtle decline is behind the hesitation on uneven ground, the slight uncertainty when turning quickly, the instinct to reach for a wall or a railing that simply was not there 10 years ago. This is very common after 60, and understanding that these three things are happening simultaneously and that they are connected is what makes the exercise we are about to discuss so significant, because it addresses all three at once. Here is where most people expect to hear about a complicated routine, a series of exercises requiring equipment or a gym or a level of physical confidence that does not feel accessible from where they currently are. What I am about to describe requires a chair, nothing else. The exercise is the sit to stand. And before that sounds too simple to take seriously, stay with this explanation. Because the reason this single movement is so powerful has everything to do with the three things we just discussed. The sit to stand is exactly what it sounds like. You sit in a sturdy chair. You rise to a full standing position without using your hands if you safely can. Then you lower yourself back down slowly with full control until you are seated again. That is one repetition. But look at what is actually happening during those few seconds. The quadriceps, the large muscles at the front of the thigh, are contracting forcefully to drive the body upward against gravity. The glutes are activating to extend the hip and bring the body to full upright. The deep core muscles are engaging to stabilize the spine throughout the movement, and the smaller stabilizing muscles of the ankle and foot are firing continuously to maintain balance through the transition from seated to standing and back again. In a single movement, every major lower body muscle group is being loaded, activated, and challenged, not in isolation, together, in exactly the functional pattern the body uses for almost every physically meaningful activity of daily life. And here is the analogy that makes the importance of this clear. Imagine a machine that has several interconnected components, each one dependent on the others to function correctly. When all components are exercised together in their natural working relationship, the whole machine stays calibrated, efficient, and reliable. When individual components are exercised in isolation, or not exercised at all, the calibration is lost even if each individual part still appears to function. The sit-to-stand exercises the machine as a whole, in the pattern the body actually uses, which is precisely why its effect on functional strength, balance, and daily physical confidence is so much greater than the sum of its individual muscle activations. That is why this movement appears consistently in the physical therapy literature for fall prevention, in the geriatric medicine research on functional independence, in the longevity science on the physical markers most predictive of healthy aging, not because it is fashionable, because the biology fully supports it. Now here's the part of this exercise that surprises people most, and that most fitness content aimed at seniors completely overlooks. The most important moment of the sit-to-stand is not the standing up, it is the sitting back down. The slow, controlled, deliberate lowering of the body back into the chair, resisting gravity rather than surrendering to it, is what scientists call an eccentric contraction. And eccentric contractions are the most powerful stimulus for muscle preservation and muscle rebuilding that exists. More powerful, gram for gram of muscle tissue engaged, than the concentric contraction of rising. Most people, when they sit back down, simply drop into the chair. The effort is over, the body releases, and gravity does the rest. In doing so, they eliminate the most valuable half of the exercise without realizing it. Lowering slowly, taking 3 to 4 full seconds to return to the seated position, maintaining control and resistance throughout, transforms the sit to stand from a functional movement into one of the most effective muscle-preserving exercises available to a person over 60, without any equipment, without any additional time, without any change to the movement itself beyond one instruction. Go slow on the way down. This is very common. Most people rush the descent without any awareness of what they are sacrificing. Now you know. And knowing changes everything about how this exercise is done. Here is how to begin, simply, safely, and in a way that builds genuine results over time. Start with 5 repetitions in the morning. Just 5. Done slowly, done with full attention, done with the deliberate 3-second descent that makes the movement genuinely effective. If 5 feels comfortable after 3 or 4 days, move to 8, then 10, then 12. The progression is not about speed. It is about consistency and about the quality of each repetition rather than the quantity. If rising without hands feels unsafe or unstable at first, use the armrest lightly for assistance. There is no compromise in that. The goal is the movement, the muscle activation, and the daily repetition, not a standard to perform against. Use whatever support allows the movement to happen safely, and reduce that support gradually as strength and confidence build. Pair the sit-to-stand with a short walk each morning, even 10 to 15 minutes. The walk stimulates circulation, reinforces the proprioceptive calibration that the sit-to-stand begins, and supports the cardiovascular system in ways that compound the benefit of the resistance-based movement rather than duplicating it. Drink a full glass of water before beginning. Muscle tissue is approximately 75% water, and even mild dehydration meaningfully impairs both muscle function during exercise and the repair process that follows. This is not a minor detail, it is a foundational one. If possible, position your chair near a window where natural morning light is present. Morning light anchors the circadian rhythm in ways that support both the hormonal environment for muscle repair and the quality of sleep that night, which is when the actual rebuilding of the muscle tissue stimulated by the morning movement takes place. And eat protein within an hour of completing the movement. Not a large meal necessarily. eggs, Greek yogurt, a small serving of cottage cheese, a handful of nuts alongside something more substantial, but something that gives the body the amino acids it needs to act on the stimulus the exercise just provided. Movement without protein is the construction crew without materials. Both are necessary. Neither is sufficient alone. So here is where everything comes together. After 60, lower body muscle mass declines quietly and progressively. Circulation in the lower body slows as the muscular pump that drives it becomes less active. And proprioception, the body's ability to sense its own position and maintain balance, becomes less sharp without regular physical challenge. These three changes together explain most of what people over 60 experience as the physical reality of aging: the effort required to rise, the heaviness in the legs by afternoon, the slight uncertainty in balance that was not there a decade ago, and the sit to stand, done daily, done slowly, done with deliberate attention to the descent, directly addresses all three simultaneously. It rebuilds the muscle, it activates the circulatory pump, it recalibrates the proprioceptive system with every single repetition. 5 repetitions, 1 chair, every morning. Not as a temporary intervention, not as a short-term fix, as a daily investment in the physical reserve that determines how the years ahead actually feel to live in. Your body is still responding, still adapting, still capable of rebuilding something real and meaningful from exactly where you are right now. The research supports that, the biology supports that, and the thousands of people over 60 who have made this single movement a daily habit and felt the difference support that. The question is simply whether today is the day you begin. Have you tried the sit to stand or something similar and noticed a difference in how you feel? Does that morning struggle feel familiar in your own life? Share your experience in the comments below, because your words matter here, and someone reading today may find exactly the encouragement they needed in what you choose to share.